Hey! How you doing? How you doing? So, I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I want to just talk about it. My videos are long. I noticed that, and that's probably a pain. I don't mean to bore you guys. I don't think I have. Not that I care, but there's certain things that I definitely do kind of want to make bite-sized, less than 10-minute videos about. Certainly, with just single titles about a single idea. So let's go straight into it. Time is interesting. I was watching a video last night. It was about the Fermi, gosh, what's the last name? The Fermi paradox. It's the Fermi sign. The guy, his last name, he was a scientist. His last name is Fermi, and he posed a question about if life is abundant, if life is in the universe, how come we haven't seen them yet? How come we aren't interacting with them? And he posed one or a few different single paradoxes, and then people have added on to that. And there are many different interesting things about time, the length of time that it takes for species to travel, at least at the speed of light. Though it is very likely that they could easily travel in inner dimensions if they exist. Extraterrestrial beings, that is. But mind I digress. That got me thinking about time. It got me thinking about time today while I was at work. And the thing that is interesting to me, the thing that interests me just throughout my day when I see things on the news or talk with people in my own life or hear about things or read about things is I think one of the biggest things, and certainly this certainly has to come into play when you're talking about stocks, investments. There isn't a single investment advice that you ever talk about with an advisor when you're talking about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever. There isn't a single conversation you will ever have in finance without the mention of time. What is the time horizon that you expect to hold this asset? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 week, 1 year, 10 years? If you're Warren Buffett, you hold it until you die. And I think that's really interesting because within the different perspective of your time range, the cap of time that you're looking at, it changes how you see things in so many other different aspects. I was thinking about how when I was in high school, 4 years seemed like unbelievable. When I left middle school to go into high school, 4 years was, holy crap, what is that? I can't even fathom half a year. Well, now I'm getting my second degree in computer science. 4 years, you can easily imagine that. And I would imagine that by the time you're 80, gosh, I mean, if you're 80 years old and you're watching this video, you must just be laughing at the idea of 4 years. 4 years, ha, I could do that in my sleep. And they might literally be correct. And I think that's really interesting because if you phrase the age of the universe, the age of the Earth, let's say 14 billion years for the universe, right? That makes a day like this, even a year like this, since the Egyptians, hardly even a blink in the eye. It's meaningless. And yet if you phrase the age of the universe in, say, 10,000 years, 5,000 years, I'm not saying the universe is that young, it isn't. But if you look at things in that perspective, it vastly changes what all of this is. It changes everything. I always think it's really interesting that, major life components on this planet started to happen around 1 billion years ago. If you take 1 billion years and you take the several hundred thousand years that Homo sapiens have existed, this is nothing. It's been nothing since the Egyptians have come about. And I think people forget about that because that's the one big thing in economics. The thing that people forget about economics is that the vast majority of economic cycles are medium to long term. And what that means is that most economic implications or the shock wave of large macroeconomic, at least, events, not economic transactions as in the stock market, those are very finite, very minute. I'm talking macroeconomic scales. Most things take decades, if not hundreds of years. And that transcends people's lifetime. And when we talk about the Great Depression, when we talk about recessions, when we talk about booms and busts and innovations and new technologies being invented, we are still living in just the very beginning of the hockey puck of the computer. And the computing age, one can say, let's say if you argued that it started roughly with Alan Turing during World War II, in, 70 years, we're not even there yet. We haven't even started. We have these things called iPhones, we have iPads, we have the internet, and it is just the beginning if you look at the prospective time horizon of how long might computational devices be around, which is likely to be a long time, because we still use paper, we still use books, and they've been around for thousands of years. Imagine being one of the first persons to ever hold a book. I mean, that's pretty powerful to think about. And if you said to them, this is going to last 5,000 years, 3,000 years, 2,000 years, they go, what? And if you said that to them, they would look at it completely differently. They would go, oh, this is just the beginning. These are all the potential possibilities. But if you look at something in a much shorter length of time, you limit the mind to potential secondary events and events that happen third, fourth, fifth. And I think that the bigger the time horizon, technically in economics, the bigger well, it's not even in economics, it's just a mathematical statistical fact. The more n observations you have of any set of data, the more accurate they become, the more defined patterns become. And I think many times we can kind of get lost in the technology and the instant texting, the instant tweeting, the instant everything. Everything is instant. And sometimes we forget that things take time. Sometimes you just have to wait. And I'm not making a point about anything. This is just really all the video was. I was just thinking of a set of questions, a set of interesting whom's. And I don't really have anywhere to really go with them. I just wanted to say them to you and get them listed down, because I'm curious about other things in your life or that you think or see where having a perspective of short or medium or long time horizons or envelopes of time for a series of an event to happen. I'm really curious to hear what your perspective is about that. I tend to think that I really like it when Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about how some of the best minds have to think from a cosmic perspective. And I would agree with that. If someone were to ask me how I kind of view things, that's what I would probably say, is in the cosmic perspective. Whenever I think about the Earth, whenever I think about the universe, whenever I think about where we are as a species or anything, I try to do my best, and it's hard sometimes, it's just because in the day-to-day it kind of gets us. I try to think, what does this all mean? How does this look like if you're above the Milky Way? Or if you're outside just looking at the sphere of the observable universe? And sometimes you can't see anything. In fact, you can't see the Milky Way if you were just to look at the observable universe. You'd have to go to the Milky Way. And even then, you couldn't even make out what Earth is. You could hardly maybe even make out our stars, so you have to go a little bit in. But I think that the bigger perspective that you tend to have a lens on, kind of like a camera, or even a smaller perspective, how you shift the perspective, how you shift the width of the lens, and what light you can come in, determines what you see. It determines what you can see. It determines what is blurry, what is clear, and what is too small. What is this too small to see? And I think a lot of things in life happen to just be about a difference in perspective of depth. Take a look at, if you take a look at a high school diploma. 4 years, if you look at it from a really small perspective, you're middle school, or you're a middle schooler, and your day-to-day is a day-to-day. You go out, you play, you don't really have a lot of responsibilities as a middle schooler. Then it seems forever. But if you're someone who's older, you can hardly even see, it's hardly a pixel in some ways. The idea of a school year, the idea of a test, the idea of a midterm, a project. Or maybe it doesn't have to be even relate to school. It could just be a job. And so that's what I try to think about and sometimes challenge myself, is I wonder if I have the right perspective. I wonder if I'm looking at this thing from the right length of time. I wonder if I have the right lens width for this. And I like to play around in my mind about how certain things look like from different time horizons. What does this look like from a year? Or what does this look like from 10 years? What about 100 years? So that's what I thought about today. And I think I got this in around 10 minutes, so that's kind of good. That's half than the average length of time, because YouTube has all these statistics about the average length of your videos, and right now it's not 10 minutes. But I'll see you guys tomorrow, or whenever I make the next one, which should be pretty regular. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see what I think about.